Hey everyone, today we're going to go over how to sand and prime your 3D print in preparation for paint. Today we have an ABS plastic print as you would receive it from the Otis Model Shop, that is with your support material dissolved and the raw product you design left behind. Our goals today, we have two goals today. The first is to rough up the print with some sandpaper, simply to open up the surface to accept primer and paint. And our second goal, and our ultimate goal, is to eliminate the striation and texture left behind by the printing process. You can kind of see here, we're going to get rid of that. Get rid of all of that to create a smooth surface for your paint. The first thing I like to do is take some sandpaper. I have 120 grit here today. And just take it all over your print. We're not looking to eliminate any sort of striation or texture quite yet. We're just looking to rough it up all over so that we can put down our first layer of primer. So I've gone over our project with 120 grit sandpaper, just one or two passes real quick. As you can see, the striations are a little more exaggerated now. Again, we're not looking to eliminate those with our first pass. We're just looking to rough up the surface to apply our primer onto it. If you have any seams or edges that need filled with Bondo or other filler, now would be the best time to start. Nothing on here needs it as it was just one print, but the longer you wait to make those repairs or changes in your project, the more the primer and paint is just going to interfere. The primer I'm going to use is just a gray automotive primer, a sandable automotive primer. I like to use gray, but any color works. If you have a lighter color project, ultimately you might want to use a white primer, but gray is usually the most available and cheapest option. Your first coat of primer will be your lightest coat. I like to call it a dust coat because you're not looking for complete coverage here, you're just looking to establish the connection between the primer and the surface of your object. So as you can see, not complete coverage here, but the places we need to pay attention to when sanding are very obvious now. Your preceding coats of primer should be slightly heavier. Once your initial coat of primer is established, the additional layers will adhere and dry much stronger. Look for problem areas where you can use the primer to fill between difficult to sand or problematic textures, as opposed to trying to only sand them away. Keep in mind that we want to fill the texture of the object with primer as much as we want to sand the texture away, so that we don't begin to change the profile of the project or do too much work for no reason. As you progress through your layers of primer, you should incrementally increase your grit of sandpaper to promote smoothness. I started with 120 grit sandpaper for my initial pass, but after a couple layers of primer, I moved on to 220 grit. For this project, I will eventually use 320 grit for my final pass. I recommend having a few selections between 120 and 400 grit sandpaper for sanding on plastic. Repeat the process until the undesired texture from the print is mostly gone. Remember, this is just your primer coat, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Your final coat will do a lot to fill in the remaining questionable areas. The most important part of painting your primer is to create a strong connection between the plastic print and the primer itself by building that primer gradually. Doing so ensures a durable and even painting surface and maintains the integrity of your design by minimizing paint buildup. In review, what you want to keep in mind while applying your primer is pretty simple. Start with a thin layer of primer and gradually build up, and start with your coarsest sandpaper and gradually use higher grits. In the next video, we'll take our Prime 3D print and explore some cool painting and stenciling techniques.